All right, Jeremy. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. Really appreciate you being here. Do you mind just getting us started by telling the audience, who you are and what you do and how you help your clients and your market?
Absolutely. Well, thanks. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here. So I'm Jeremy Shear, and I am coming at you from Bloomington, Indiana, home of Indiana University. But if there's a video version of this, and you can see I'm wearing a Detroit Tigers hat because I'm originally from Detroit. That's where I grew up, and those are still all my sports team allegiances, Lions, Tigers, all those good teams. So what do I do and how do I help people? My business is called Spark Catalyst, and we work with people like me, solopreneurs, people who run small businesses who are not marketing and sales experts. And so marketing and sales becomes a kind of necessary evil. You have to do it, or else your business won't survive. But man, is it a time-consuming pain in the ass. And just a real pain. You can end up dumping a lot of money into it with sketchy results. Something works, you're not sure why it works. A lot of stuff doesn't work, you have no idea why. And so those are the kind of people we help. And we help them in a particular way. We have a series of workshops that we do that address really kind of basic component parts of setting any business up for success, and then doing sales and marketing in a way that you need to do it if you're a service provider, if you're essentially selling yourself, your expertise, and your time. And the key to it is keeping things one-on-one and personal with the people that you are networking with, connecting with, nurturing as potential clients. And that can be really difficult if you're trying to do everything yourself and trying to do it all by hand. That can really burn you out quickly. But the problem is if you start automating everything and templating everything, well, you can easily lose that personal touch. So where does that leave you? So we help people kind of chart a third way. There's a lot of AI involved. And we give people a process. Again, people who are selling themselves and their expertise, but they're not experts in marketing and sales. We give people a repeatable process to kind of scale the one-on-one networking approach. How to have better conversations with people. How to spend your time. A lot of these folks you spend time filling up your calendar with calls with people, and all too often, unfortunately, they end with something like, great to meet you, let's stay in touch. And that's it. And nothing else really happens. And you have a whole bunch of people in your CRM kind of somewhere in your pipeline, but they don't really go anywhere. And you don't have any good, repeatable way to reconnect, keep the conversation going so it actually gets you where you want to go. So that's the problem we help address, and those are the people we help.
That's really great. So I can certainly appreciate the need. So I've got this belief. Some agree, some don't. But businesses only exist to solve problems, right? There's a market or an individual or a sector, however you want to look at it. They've got a problem that they either can't solve themselves or it's too expensive for them to solve themselves, either in time or money or both. And then so businesses come along and they say, all right, well, we'll solve that problem for you. We'll bridge that gap in between where you are and where you want to be. And this is the cost, right? And then the cost or what the client pays over and above the price or the cost of those services rendered, there's your profit. I just gave you an economics lessons. The audience, you just got your economics 101, right? And so what I think you've done really well that is what I want to key in on is you've identified a specific audience type, a specific customer type, and a specific problem that they have. So my question is, what brought you to that, solution, right? What made you realize, like, hey, look, I've had enough. I've seen enough of this. This is clearly a challenge that is worth trying to solve it in exchange for money.
Yep, great question. And the simple answer is that I experienced that problem myself. I know it all too well. As a small business person trying to grow your business. It's like the one pain point that every single business has and that never goes away. You know, you can make it a little less painful, but it's always going to be there. And I experienced that myself. You know, not when I first got into business, I didn't have any real business background or training in sales or marketing, but suddenly I found myself having to, like, oh shit, okay, I'm the salesperson. I'm the marketing person. You know, I'm the everything person. And I tried a lot of different things, most of which didn't really work that well. The one thing that did work, at least somewhat well, was, and this is when I started my first business, was a podcast production business, still up and running. And the way that I didn't have much of a network at all. And the way that I got to talk to people, to the specific people I was trying to nurture as clients, I started my own podcast and reached out cold to people, invited them to be guests on the show. And most people said yes. I didn't make up this tactic. It was, you know, widely used, well known. But I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And it worked. You know, I got most people I asked would say yes to being a guest on the podcast. And then a percentage of those ended up becoming clients because I would find that opened the door. And then I would find ways to have a discussion when the time was right about maybe you guys want to start a podcast, you know? And what really worked about it, I think, was two things. Like, one, reaching out and offering value, making an offer that people really want to do. You know, you want to be on a podcast? Sure, most people are going to say yes. And then in the process of creating the podcast, like we're doing right now, it's a collaboration, all right? So it's an opportunity for the people you're talking to work with you a little bit and kind of get to know you. And you interview you and get to know them. So long story short, I did that for a while and it worked pretty well. And I stopped only because running a podcast is a lot of work. And I did hundreds of episodes, and I'm like, I'm going to try other things, and I don't want to do this anymore. Tried everything else under the sun. You know, spent hours and hours on LinkedIn, like posting all the time. Did that whole thing. Tried email campaigns. Did a ton of networking and calls and stuff like that. Trying to build up referrals and everything. And nothing ever worked as well as that simple, just reaching out, inviting people to do something, and then sparking that relationship and then nurturing them over the long run. And that's what I just came back to. And I was like, well, I don't want to do a podcast again, but are there other ways I could do that without the big lift of starting a podcast? And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, yeah, sure there are. And I just started trying things. You can invite people to do a lot of things with you. And at the heart of it is kind of this idea that if you sell based on relationships, then the next question is like, okay, it's easy to start a relationship. You can get a call with somebody, have a chat. Okay. But how do you build that? What does that actually look like? And I think collaboration is one of the keys there. If you can not just chat with someone, but actually do something with somebody, work on a project together, collaborate, that's going to really speed things up. People get to know you better. You get to know them. And you really get a lot more clarity on where this relationship is going to go. They're going to become a client, some kind of referral partner, some kind of support in some other way, or nothing at all. You want to answer that question as quickly as possible so you don't waste your time. And that was kind of the insight at the heart of Spark Catalyst. Invite people to do things with you. And we put a framework around that to make it easier for people to do.
So that's really interesting. I mean, and what you described has mirrored a lot of what we've done with this podcast over the last couple of years, right? And we take a slightly different approach to what you described, but in concept, it's really similar. And so I've definitely seen and felt the kind of highs and lows of that process, of the benefits and the challenges, right? Now we're fortunate that we've got a team that is kind of backing all of this, that once I'm done with this conversation, right, just I'm done with it, right? And so then I get to see myself on YouTube in about 30 days, which is cool. But for, solopreneurs like you're describing, it would be a lot of work, right? I know that because I've done it all. And so how do you actually facilitate? You talk about kind of working on something together, right? When you've got, say, you've identified somebody that could be a partner or something like that. You mentioned a framework. I'd be super interested to know like what that framework looks like.
Yeah, well, there's no one way that it looks. because it's always going to be different depending on who you're dealing with. So one of our core principles is it's always one-on-one. Each person that you're nurturing, right? They're a unique individual. Like we all have our ICP, ideal client profile. But that's just a profile. The individual people who fit into that bucket, they're all different, right? Like they might all be business coaches or whatever, but each one is unique and different. They have similarities, but to really get to know them and to kind of nurture them, the more you know about the individual person you're dealing with, the better. And the better that relationship is going to go, and the more efficient it's going to be, because you can really you can develop trust a lot more quickly if you treat people really as individuals and make the effort and take the time to really get to know them as individuals, as opposed to just kind of someone who fits the profile that you're looking for, So it really depends. So like one really simple technique that we teach is, okay, you don't need a podcast, but you study someone, look at their LinkedIn, look at their website, whatever, and just learn, what are they into? Who's their ideal client? What are they all about, kind of beyond the surface, And then you can reach out to them in a really personalized way and invite them to, let's say, create a piece of content with you. It could be as simple as, hey, I looked at this post that you posted last week on LinkedIn. Really interesting. I think there's more there. I'd love to unpack that with you. You want to create a quick video with me?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, so it's a little bit less rigid, which I can see that being a big benefit. It's like, look, I don't know exactly how, and we do this a lot in, conversations with folks that have complementary services. Mm-hmm. We hear this a lot from people that end up becoming clients. It's like, hey, I don't know how or what, but like we should find a way to work on something together.
Yeah.
And if you can do that in a way that is directly revenue producing, then that's obviously ideal, right? We've skipped straight to the end goal. But what you're describing, it widens that bucket, it widens that funnel of people that you actually can collaborate with. It doesn't have to be something that's immediately revenue producing. It could be, downstream revenue can be what is produced. But right now it's like exactly what we're doing. Hey, we're going to work on this together. We're going to have this conversation. This is going to become a piece of content that both of us are going to use for our own marketing purposes. But you can do that. I would imagine you can do that in the creation of a, webinar, right? Or the creation of even like not a print, but like a visual asset of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of our approach is the more tailored that can be to the person you're talking to, the better the odds are that they're going to respond positively. And just the better the odds are that you're going to develop the kind of relationship with them that is going to pay off either in the short term or in the long term. And there's a lot of AI involved in this. I think the reason that a lot of people don't do this, or that it can be difficult, is that it takes a lot of time to get to know someone. Even if you're just looking at their LinkedIn or their website or whatever, you have to take the time to do that. So one thing that AI is really good at, right? You can dump a bunch of stuff into ChatGPT or whatever, and it can break it down for you pretty quickly, right? So, and you can use it to help craft messaging, or like let's say that you're on LinkedIn and you're looking at someone, you're like, they could, they fit all the criteria, right? I want to spark a relationship with this person, or you get a warm intro to them from someone whatever, and then you schedule a call. I think too often, and I definitely found myself in this position a lot. Too often, I would get on that call without like a real plan. I would kind of fall back and like, well, I know how to do this. I've been doing this for a while. I'm pretty good on the phone. I was going to say on the phone, on a video call, and I can just kind of wing it and we'll see where it goes. And that's okay. But then when I rethought that, I'm like, well, wait a minute. This person's like giving me their time to be on a call with me, someone they don't really know. We don't know each other yet. I want this to be memorable. I want to make an impression on them. I want to come out the other side of this call with something concrete and not just nice to meet you. Let's stay in touch. That's much more likely to happen if I spend the time to really to brainstorm, what could I suggest to this person that we could collaborate on? That's about them. That's real. Like, what could I suggest? How could I conduct this conversation in a way that's going to lead where I'm hoping to go? Not all at once in just the one call, but you know what I mean? How can I be more strategic about all of this? And I think that's a heavy lift if every single call you're doing that out of your own head and just trying to figure it out. With AI, that's a big, real game changer. And we've actually built some of our own tools, some of our own AI software that is designed to help with that particular thing. So that when you get on a call, you're not just kind of vaguely like, well, let's figure it out. No, I have a real plan. And I have like a dossier of this person, and I have a goal, and I have a strategy just for this one call to come out the other side with the next step in place.
What I think is really interesting about that, Jeremy, is that AI is like, there's this monolithic myth of AI as like this one big thing that like you use it for this specific purpose, and a lot of people feel like it's to just put words on a screen, right? Like I'm going to give it some information, I'm going to ask it to give me some stuff. And we've all come to be able to, I'm sure you have, a lot of us have come to recognize lazy AI. Lazy AI writing, but without even going down that rabbit hole, what I've found much more use out of it is what you're describing, which is how can I use it to support some of the peripheral work and preparation and note taking and summarizing and organizing, so that when I'm on stage, right, or when I'm in between the four lines of, I'm in the game, I am as prepared and I am as ready and I'm able to fully engage in that thing that I'm doing, with whether it's with a client, a prospect, a connection, when I'm speaking. And so that to me sounds like what you are describing when we're talking about the use of AI in that. Am I in the right ballpark there?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like we don't really use, and I'll, for myself personally, and myself and my partner, yeah, we're not using AI so much to like generate content that I'm going to make public. Write me 12 LinkedIn posts, write a blog post. Maybe like give me some ideas for that, but partly for the reasons that you say, that I just feel like I'm like, even though AI has gotten better and better and better, I can still write better in my own voice than AI can. So, if there's ever a need for that, and I'm also a trained writer, so like it's not that hard. But yeah, like to as a creative partner, and almost like an assistant that can help you prepare for things, it's unparalleled. And you're using it and if you're using it in a strategic way, And in our use case, I found AI can really help with the relationship building process, right? So just like you described, like when you get on a call with somebody, that's really valuable time you're spending, and ideally you want to be as prepared as possible. That's where I find the AI can really, really help get you, like you said, like when you're, because I look at those calls too, like a networking call, jumping on with someone, that's kind of a performance, Not in a bad way. Like you're not trying to trick anyone or be fake or not be yourself. But you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
like you said, you're on. Like you're in business mode, and I think a mistake that a lot of people make, or I don't know if I want to call it a mistake, but just, and I'm not even sure if a lot of people are aware of this, but it kind of hit me anyway. I'm like, yeah, on these calls, like it's too often. I feel like I hope something good comes out of this. But that's not a great way to do business. I want to have a goal and then have a strategy for making that goal happen. Doesn't mean it'll work every single time, but you know what I mean? I want to be prepared in that way, instead of just, let's have a nice chat and make friends and then see somehow, some way, sometime, something good might happen. No, I don't have time for that. Life's too short. I want to make things happen. And now we have this fantastic tool in AI that can do a lot of different things, and I think that's one of them. It can really help you up your strategy game for things like having calls where previously I think we're just like, well, you don't need a strategist, get on there and do it. I'm like, no, not anymore. I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's not what I do anymore.
I agree. I think we're past those days of just throw stuff in there. I mean, that to me was like when it was in the novelty phase of like just throw stuff in there and it can do stuff for you. And the market quickly adapts, right? It's like the word processor. To me, that's all it is. It's a new iteration of that, and it's much more transformative. But it is something that you only had about 6 to 12 months where you were like the only one using it, right? And you had like this
Right.
this hack. It's like, no, now it needs to fit within the strategy, and you need to have a strategy for AI deployment within all of the different departments and the different facets of the business.
Absolutely. Right. And like just one thing that we do in Spark Catalyst, which has kind of been an offshoot of our main thing, is, as I mentioned too, as part of building Spark Catalyst, I got into building AI tools. Because I'm like, partly out of curiosity, I just wanted to see what I could build, like custom GPTs, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the more I got into that and then started getting into vibe coding and building like actual applications, I'm like, you know what? This can be a game changer. So we've actually started offering like workshops. We did one just today, in fact, on AI Builder Bootcamp. So we had a bunch of people who were like, basically wanted to know, what else can I do with AI beyond prompting it and just kind of chatting with it? And the answer is you can do a lot of stuff, even if you're not a technical person. If I'm not a coder, I'm not a software developer, but now I kind of feel like I am, on a small scale in a simple way. And that's fascinating to me. And I would encourage really anyone listening to this who's like a service provider,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you've felt yourself at some point wishing like, man, I wish I could code, or if I could, I would build some killer software, or I wish I didn't have to get yet another SaaS subscription, Before like a year ago, you probably couldn't unless you were willing to learn how to code. Now you can. You can build your own applications with AI tools. You can build AI applications. You can build whatever applications with AI tools. I really encourage every service provider person to at least check that out. You can like productize what you do with your service offerings. It's pretty cool.
Well, and that's exactly what we're coming full circle in the conversation, right? Is that you have a problem, not you, Jeremy, but like you as the individual, you have a problem that in the past you've had to pay for a solution for. Well, now there's a new problem, which is we got to do it faster because the market is demanding that we do because of these new advancements, mostly leveraging AI. And so you got a choice. You can go find another more expensive thing, right, that can do it better. You can hope and wait for that platform or program or software to do it faster, or you can figure out how to build something on your own. And we have never had a better ability to do that with minimal actual like coding skills. 'Cause I'm not a coder, but by any stretch, but I understand it enough where I can say, if we're stuck on something like a website project or something like that, and there's a page that's just not working for us, right? Something's in that HTML that's just causing things to be a little wonky. Well, I got this great little executive assistant, marketing assistant, coding assistant, all that kind of stuff that I can throw in and say, hey, look, here's the back end, here's the code. Why is this not working? And can you please give me the bit of the lines of code that need to be fixed, and then pop that in? There you go. Well, now I'm a coder. So
exactly. It's remarkable to me, that it opens up for people like us, right, who are not coders. And I've tried a few different times to learn how to code, like half-heartedly, and I'm like, I'm never going to do this. It's too finicky. It's just my brain doesn't really work that way. But I've always felt a little bad about it. Like, man, it's this crucial skill, and I'm just shut out of that. And now with AI, I'm like, it would still be better to actually know how to code, but that no longer stops you from doing exactly what you just described or building something from scratch. it's extremely empowering. At least I find that
Yeah.
it is. If you're someone who likes to build things and create things, it's a whole brave new world. It's awesome.
Well, I completely agree. I mean, I wish there was something like this for the real world. Like, like something's broken on my, something's not working in my car's engine, right?
Right, yeah.
Here's a picture. Here's a screenshot. Tell me what's going on. And weirdly, there were actually a few instances. We built a gazebo in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And there actually were a couple of spots where I used like Chat GPT, took a picture of it and said, hey, this isn't really fitting right. What should I do here? So as I say that, I've kind of answered my own question. But I needed to fix it for me, actually. That'd be great.
Right. Well, that's coming. The robots are
That's
on
right.
their
the
way.
robots are coming.
They're on their way.
I've never seen the movie Terminator, so I have no reason
What?
to fear.
You've
Kidding.
never
I've seen
seen
it, and there is that concern, right? Let's worry. Let's just keep an eye out.
We'll keep our eye. You've never seen Terminator?
No, I was kidding. No, I've seen it,
okay,
all of them.
okay.
It's actually like a huge. I have this weird for like futuristic disaster movies. Mm-hmm. So Terminator, iRobot. Mm-hmm. Big fan of like zombie movies too. Weirdly, it's like I don't care at all about horror films or anything, but for whatever reason, like these futuristic, like
Black Mirror. You have Black Mirror.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
so these are just like things that are fascinating. So I'm saying, if you've never seen those, you have nothing to fear. But if you have, anyway, the robots are coming.
Right. No, but I hear you. I use ChatGPT for that too. Like what was it? I was like my coffee machine wasn't working. And it's technical enough, so I'm like, there's a lot of moving parts. I don't want to, screw it up. So I took a picture of the thing, asked ChatGPT what's going on here, and it knew exactly what to do, and I was able to solve it in about 2 seconds. It's remarkable, and that applies to building software too. It's crazy that we have in our pockets or whatever.
Yeah.
Essentially access to an all-knowing brain.
Yeah.
That's getting smarter and smarter and smarter, like literally by the second.
Right. Yeah. And we can make it smarter. It's neat.
Yeah.
Well, segueing a little bit, Jeremy, because I want to hear about, what you are working on now, right? Is there anything that you're building towards? Is there anything that you want people to know about when it comes to the future of your business in the near or long term?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well, we're always evolving and building things, but I'm going to mention a few specific things that listeners to this podcast, I think, could benefit from and that could easily access, because these are things that we are giving to people, giving away, essentially. Mm-hmm. So one is, my partner and I have recently launched a community, an online community. And so I would invite anyone listening to this podcast that's interested in sales and marketing, especially if you're a solopreneur or a small business person and you're not a sales marketing expert, then I would invite you to join our community. It's free. And I can give you a link to put in the show notes. So
That'd
if
be
anyone's
great.
curious, they can check it out. And so that's one thing. I'd really love for people to check us out and join in. We're small but growing quickly. And there's just a lot of resources in there and a lot of good people that you can network with and interact with to learn about, what's going on in sales and marketing. And if you sell through networking and building relationships, but you suspect that maybe you could be doing a better job of it, or there's just more stuff you could be doing, our community will be really, really beneficial for you. I've already mentioned that I'm building a piece of software. I call it a micro app. It's called Call Ready. And it does one thing. It helps you prep for calls. So it's like the scenario where you look at your calendar and you're like, oh shit, I have 4 calls today back to back. And the first one's in 15 minutes and you open it up and you're like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
We scheduled it like 3 months ago. I don't know who that is or where we met or anything, or have we even talked before, constantly in that situation. So Call Ready it uses AI. Basically you give it someone's name and their website address, click, and within about 30 seconds it gives you an in-depth profile of that person. And then if you want to, you can go in with the AI and prep for that call, get a little plan together. So I have built this software, and it's free. I just want to
Awesome.
get it out in the world, give people free access, and so we can include a link to that as well in the show notes. And I'd love for any listener that's at all interested just to check it out. There's no risk.
I will definitely include that in the show notes and in the description on YouTube. Folks, if you're watching on YouTube, just go down there and click on that link. I think I want to bring this to a close on one thing. I haven't done this before, but it's something that I may start doing. Jeremy, you're a sharp guy, obviously. I bet that you are a reader. I'm just going to guess. Here's why I bring this up. I think the more, and I've felt this way, the more that the market, the more that commerce in general, the more that the world shifts ever forward towards AI driven blank, right? For a while it was like the Uber of X, right? Now it's the AI of this or that, right? And it's becoming ever more intertwined in our lives, and in a context which was already very heavily technology driven, right? Mm-hmm. I am finding more and more value from just like picking up a real book, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not a stickler necessarily for physical books, but sometimes just shrinking my world down to like, hey, I'm going to just spend some time with this author and I'm going to learn something, one thing at a time, these pages here. So I'm curious, what are some of your favorite book recommendations and or what are you reading lately? What have you been reading lately? What are you reading now?
Right. Okay. Great question. I actually have a good answer for this one. So first of all, I should mention that you're right. I'm a bit of a reader. I actually have a PhD in English literature, as it so happens. So I'm kind of a bit of a professional reader, you might say.
Awesome.
And I very much prefer physical books to the digital version. I'm not sure why. Also physical newspapers, even though I don't subscribe to one. I don't love reading everything off of a screen.
Same.
I do, however, like listening a lot to podcasts and books. And so my answer to your actual question, this is a book I just finished listening to. If that's okay, if that counts.
That counts.
Okay.
I checked with the judges. That counts.
We will allow it. Okay.
Yeah, allowed.
So I cannot recommend this book highly enough. It's alongside the other things that I do, I'm also a musician. I would describe myself as kind of a semi-professional musician. I've made a little money at it, and I'm a songwriter. And so I'm old enough, so from a very early age, I have been obsessed with the Beatles. And I'm not that old. Like I wasn't around when we were still an active band, but that's like some of the earliest music and I've probably read everything there is to read about the Beatles. I know all the songs. I know how to play most of the songs. So I just finished listening to a book called John and Paul, A Love Story in Songs. And I'll read any book about the Beatles, but I was a little like, what could I possibly learn that's new? Like, there's been so many books written. I've watched every documentary, I've read everything, seen everything, listened to everything. And yet this book kind of blew me away because it's about the partnership between John Lennon and Paul McCartney and the interplay of their personalities and how that, of course, affected the music and how they used music as a communication tool. And it's really interesting. And I just highly recommend it if you're at all interested in the Beatles, if you're interested in music generally, if you're interested in sort of friendship as a concept. It's John and Paul, like their friendship is a fascinating thing. And they happen to both be songwriting geniuses, and so it propelled them to these incredible heights. But, it's a really interesting, thoughtful, and very entertaining listen in my case, but it would be just as good of a read. So that's the last book I listened to. I'm probably going to re-listen to it. It was that good.
I very much appreciate that recommendation. So I've found, and I like to listen to a lot of books. I usually have a book that I'm reading physically and a book that I'm listening to. Just all at the same time, right? Because I find that if I spend a lot of time in the car, spend a lot of time, running, walking, working out, stuff like that, and that's a good time for listening. But sitting down, with kind of myself, I like reading physical books. I have found that I really enjoy anything that is biographical or autobiographical because I think like what you're describing, you can learn plenty about what they did, but how they did it, why they did it, what they were thinking when they did it, and seeing things from their perspective when maybe they weren't sure what it was going to look like in their future, right? We have the advantage of hindsight, and they were relying on less certain realities, right? And so I found that a lot of different disciplines, even ones that I wouldn't have thought to myself that, hey, I'm interested in what that person's doing. I've read some by some, actors, entertainers, artists. There's some really, really good ones I could recommend. I mean, I read Shoe Dog, the book, the biography or the autobiography of Phil Knight, which I did not think I would have any interest in whatsoever. I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography, which I did not think I'd have any interest in at all, but just seeing things from the perspective of somebody that did not know what the future is going to hold. I've read Titan by Ron Chernow, which is the biography of John D. Rockefeller, and you get to see things kind of as he was writing in his journal about plans he had when he was in his 30s of like, really hope this little factory I've got in Cleveland, Ohio works out, right? And little did he expect, like we now know, that he became, one of the richest people of all time. And so anytime you can kind of see things from the perspective of those doing it, or that you can kind of zoom into the how and the why, I find that to be not only super interesting, but it's incredibly inspiring. And there's a lot of takeaways that I usually get from that. And so I've come to gravitate towards those a lot. So I'm adding that to my list.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's really interesting and instructive to learn about other entrepreneurs, especially people who've been very successful, to kind of peel back the myth and be like, yeah, what were they like before they were famous and successful?
Right.
And how did they get there? Like what were and you start to pick up certain qualities, like you start to get the look and like how people think and what is it that propelled them to, like, I just last night I was looking around on Netflix for something to watch, and there's a documentary, like a multi-part documentary about the Dallas Cowboys.
I saw that. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm like,
I didn't watch it, but I saw the trailer for that. I know what you're talking
I just started watched the first episode, and I'm like, okay, I'm a Detroit Lions fan. I don't really care about the Cowboys, but they're super famous. I'm like, this could be fun. And what's really interesting about it, the first episode really tells the story of Jerry Jones, the Cowboys owner, and where he came from and how he bought the Cowboys. And you just, I mean, look, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm sure this documentary is like putting him in a really good light or whatever, but it's fascinating. This is guy, like a lot of entrepreneurs, this guy was a little crazy, a crazy risk taker, but really smart, charismatic, like, and the story unfolds of like how he made his fortune and the risks he took and why and how, and like you said, it is pretty inspiring. You're just like, damn, that, not that I'm like, well, I can do the same thing, like, no, but it is inspiring, and I think especially if you're in business or like you want to build something, you like making things. How does that happen? What is it that enables or inspires certain people to do great things or create great things? And it's different, each story is different, but it is very interesting.
I could not agree more. Well, Jeremy, I'm adding this to my list of questions I ask all future guests.
There you go.
So I really appreciate you kind of taking me through your mind and how you're thinking and what you're reading and things like that. And of course, I appreciate you talking about, your business, how you help people, how you solve problems. And so that's what business is about, and that's what this podcast is about. So thank you very much for joining me today. Folks, again, there's some helpful links in the description here on YouTube. And if you want to get in touch with Jeremy, the link to his LinkedIn and link to his website is going to be in there as well. I really appreciate all of you for joining me. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the show. And I will see you all on the next one. Thanks.
Bye-bye.